This is the story of a disturbing and true farm horror story I am going to tell you. It happened a few years ago, not too far from where I grew up. A quiet countryside, peaceful fields, and a small farm owned by a man named Henry. Most people in the nearby town knew Henry as a kind but quiet man. He lived alone after his wife passed away, and he took care of the farm by himself. No one really visited him anymore. He didn't come to town much either. Now, I didn't know Henry personally, but my uncle did. He used to deliver supplies to the farm once a month, and it was through him that I first heard about what happened. At first, it sounded like just another creepy farm tale. But when people from the police and reporters got involved, things got very real, very fast. It started with strange sounds. Henry told my uncle that at night he would hear scratching on the walls of his barn. Not animals, not the kind of sounds you expect on a farm. He said it sounded like nails, human nails, scratching wood. The first time he heard it, he thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But it kept happening, every single night. Then came the shadows. Henry told my uncle he would see shapes walking between the trees near the cornfields, always after midnight. They were tall, thin, and fast. So fast that when he turned his flashlight toward them, they'd already be gone. He thought maybe it was kids playing a prank. But who would do that every night for weeks? One morning, Henry found all his chickens dead. Not eaten, not taken, just dead. Their necks were broken, and they were laid in a perfect circle in the middle of the yard. No blood, no struggle, just like they were placed there. He buried them quickly and didn't call anyone. He didn't want the town gossiping about him, but things only got worse. A week later, Henry found deep holes dug around his house. Not animal holes. These were wide and perfectly round, like someone had used some tool. He tried filling them, but every night they came back. The same holes in the same places. That's when he finally told my uncle, who told him to call the sheriff. But Henry didn't. He said the moment he reported it, the thing, or whatever, would get angry. One night Henry couldn't take it anymore. He stayed up with his shotgun, hiding near the barn. Around 2 a.m., he saw something move behind the tractor. He aimed, he shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. Then he saw it step into the moonlight. It wasn't human. Henry described it as a man, but too thin, with long arms that almost touched the ground. Its skin was pale, almost gray, and its eyes didn't shine in the light. They absorbed it, like two black holes. It didn't run. It didn't speak. It just stared at him. Henry fired. The thing fell, but when he ran toward it, it was gone. No blood, no trace, nothing. That's when he started locking everything. He even put iron bars on the windows of his house. But whatever it was, it didn't care about locks. My uncle visited him 2 days later and said Henry looked like he hadn't slept in days. He had bags under his eyes, his hands were shaking, and he kept muttering something under his breath. My uncle only caught parts of it. Something about underground and they come through the roots. That same night, Henry disappeared. The town noticed when he didn't show up for his usual supply run. My uncle went to check on him and found the farm empty, not abandoned, just wrong. The front door was wide open. The kitchen lights were flickering, and the walls had deep scratch marks just like he had described. The strangest part? There were muddy footprints, not boots, bare feet, and they led from inside the house into the barn. My uncle followed them. The barn was cold, too cold for summer. He said it smelled like old dirt and something rotten. The footprints led to a wooden hatch in the floor of the barn. It had never been opened before. When he lifted it, the smell hit him so hard he almost threw up. It was like wet soil and dead animals. The hole went deep. Too deep for a regular root cellar. There was a ladder going down, but he didn't dare follow it. He called the sheriff instead. When the police came, they went down with lights and cameras. What they found was never shared with the public, but one officer who later quit the force told someone in town that the tunnel below the barn went on for miles, and that the walls were covered in old symbols, scratched in like claw marks. They found bones, human bones, some fresh, some ancient, but they never found Henry, not even a trace. After that, the farm was sealed off. The state came in and ordered it be left alone. They put up fences and warning signs, but people still go there. Teenagers mostly, trying to prove they're brave. Some come back shaken. Some come back with scratches on their backs and no idea how they got them. One boy even went missing for 2 days. When he was found, he was wandering miles away, barefoot, repeating the words, "They come through the roots," over and over. People say the land is cursed, that something ancient lives beneath it, something that watches from below and doesn't like being seen. The farm is still there, quiet, waiting. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, folks say you can still hear scratching coming from the barn, like nails on wood, slow, steady, like something trying to climb back up. So, next time you drive past an old empty farm, don't laugh at the broken windows or the rusty gate. And whatever you do, don't follow footprints that lead into the barn, because some doors, once opened, never truly close. This is the story of a disturbing true farm horror story I'm going to tell you. It's not something you'd hear in the news or read in books. It happened to someone I know, my cousin David, and what he experienced on that farm still haunts him to this day. He doesn't talk about it much anymore, but one night, after a few drinks and a lot of silence, he told me everything. And I've never looked at farmland the same way since. David was always a city guy. He worked in IT, wore glasses, and hated Uggs. But after a rough breakup and a burnout from work, he decided he needed a break. So when an old family friend offered him a job to watch over his farmhouse in northern Missouri for a few weeks, he said yes. It was supposed to be simple. Feed the chickens, check the barn, and make sure no one stole anything. The owner, Mr. Keller, was going abroad and just needed someone to keep an eye on the place. When David got there, the first thing he noticed was how quiet everything was. No cars, no people, not even birds sometimes. The farmhouse was old, but still standing strong, surrounded by miles of empty fields and one thick patch of woods to the west. He said that during the day it was peaceful, almost too peaceful. But at night, something felt off. The first strange thing happened on his third night. He was sitting on the porch drinking a beer when he saw movement at the edge of the tree line. A person, or at least it looked like one, just standing there. Not walking, not hiding, just standing facing the house. David shouted, thinking it was a trespasser, but the figure didn't move. He grabbed the flashlight, ran out into the field, but by the time he reached the trees, the figure was gone. He told himself it was a hunter or someone passing through, but the next morning, he found something weird. On the back door of the house, scratches, deep, uneven claw marks, like someone had dragged long nails down the wood. He laughed nervously and blamed it on a raccoon or some wild animal. But deep down, he said it didn't feel like an animal. The marks were too high, too deliberate. That night, He locked every door and window. He tried to sleep, but around 2 a.m., he woke up to a creaking sound. Not just any creaking. Footsteps coming from the attic above him. He froze. The attic had no entrance from the inside of the house. You could only reach it from a trap door in the ceiling of the hallway. He got up, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. The trapdoor was slightly open. Just a crack, but enough to see something had moved it. He stared at it for what felt like an hour. Then it slammed shut. He didn't sleep after that. In the morning, he called Mr. Keller and asked if anyone had ever broken into the attic. Keller just laughed and said, "No one's ever been up there, not in decades. It's probably full of rats." But David didn't think rats opened doors and walked in human footsteps. Later that week, things escalated. Chickens started disappearing. One night he counted 12. The next morning only 8. No blood, no feathers, just gone. And then the noises began. Screams. Not human, not animal. Something in between. They came from the woods at night. Long, painful, high-pitched cries. David tried recording them, but whenever he hit record, the sounds would stop. He even left his phone outside one night, hidden in a tree. In the morning, the phone was gone. He found it 2 days later, sitting neatly on the porch, the screen, cracked, battery dead. And then came the worst part. One morning, David found footprints in the mud behind the barn, bare feet, long toes, almost claw-like. They circled the house over and over like something had walked all night in a loop. He followed them into the field, and they just stopped. No sign of where they came from or where they went. That night, he locked himself inside the house, boarded the windows, and kept the lights on. But around midnight, everything went dark. Power out. Dead silence. And then, the breathing. He said it started in the walls, like something was inside the house with him, just breathing. Slow, deep, raspy breaths, moving from room to room. He sat in the corner with a knife, shaking, listening to it get closer. Then he heard it in the hallway, and then right outside, his bedroom door. He held his breath, suddenly scratching, slow and steady, like fingernails on wood. Then a voice, not loud, not clear, just a whisper. "I see you," David snapped. He jumped out the window and ran barefoot through the field, all the way to the neighbor's farm, over a mile away. He was scratched, bruised, bleeding. The neighbors called the police. When they came to check the farmhouse, they found it locked. Nothing broken, no signs of entry. But they did find one thing. In the attic. It was empty, except for an old wooden chair and deep claw marks in a perfect circle around it, as if someone or something had been pacing there over and over again. David never went back. Mr. Keller sold the farm that year, though no one knows to who. Some say it's abandoned now. Some say they still see lights flickering in the windows at night. And a few locals swear they've seen a figure standing at the edge of the woods watching the house, waiting. David lives in a small apartment in the city now. No windows without curtains, no nights without lights on. And every now and then, when he closes his eyes, he swears he can still hear that voice whispering, "I see you." So if you ever find yourself alone on a farm, far from the city lights and sounds, pay attention to the silence. If it gets too quiet, something might be listening, and if you hear breathing behind the walls, run. This is the story of a disturbing, true farm horror story I'm going to tell you. And I swear, this is one of the most chilling things I've ever heard. It happened to a guy named Luke, a friend of my uncle's. This was way back in 2003, in rural Nebraska, where farms stretch forever and neighbors are miles apart. Luke was a tough guy, grew up in the city but had a dream of owning his own land and raising animals. He was never scared of anything. Until that year, Luke bought this old farm dirt cheap. Everyone in town thought he was crazy. People warned him the land was cursed. They didn't say it outright, of course, just little comments like, "Strange things happen out there," or "No one lasts long on that property." But Luke thought it was all small-town superstition. He moved in with his dog Rex and planned to start fresh. He fixed up the house, cleaned the barn, and got a few cows and chickens. At first, everything seemed fine, peaceful even. But that peace didn't last. One night, about 2 weeks in, Luke woke up to Rex growling. Not barking, just low, angry growling. The dog was staring at the bedroom window, hair standing up. Luke got up, looked outside, and saw nothing but open field. He calmed the dog down and went back to sleep, but the next night it happened again. Same time, same growling, same window, only this time, he saw something. Just for a second, a shadow passed by the window. Not a person, something taller, thinner. It moved fast, like it didn't quite walk. It glided. Luke ran outside with a flashlight and a shotgun, but there was nothing. No footprints, no sound, nothing. Then things started dying. First it was one of his cows. Luke found it in the field, lying on its side, eyes wide open, completely drained of blood. No bite marks, no struggle. It was just dead. The next night, another one, then 2 chickens. The animals were always found the same way, totally dry, like something had sucked the life out of them. He called the sheriff, but there wasn't much they could do. They blamed wild animals or disease. But Luke knew better. He installed motion-activated lights and cameras around the barn and house, and that's when he caught it. It was around 3:12 a.m. when the motion light by the barn clicked on. Luke rushed to the monitor, and there it was, clear as day on the camera. A tall, pale figure, almost 7 feet, standing on 2 legs, but bent forward like it didn't belong in its own skin. Its arms were too long, and its head tilted unnaturally to one side. No face, just smooth skin like it had been wiped clean. It stood there looking at the camera. Then it tilted its head and smiled. Luke freaked out. He grabbed his gun and ran outside, but the figure was already gone. No sound, no tracks, just silence. That night, Rex disappeared. Luke searched everywhere, called out, left food. Nothing. The next morning, he found Rex's collar on the porch. Just the collar. Snapped open, laid neatly like someone had placed it there on purpose. Luke was broken. He was ready to leave, but something wouldn't let him. It was like the farm wanted him there. Every time he packed up, something would stop him. The truck wouldn't start. The tires would be slashed. The road out would be blocked by a fallen tree. Always something. Then came the dreams. Every night, the same one. He's standing in the field, and the figure is watching him from the barn, just standing, not moving. And Luke can't move either. He wakes up drenched in sweat, sometimes with dirt on his feet, even though he never left the house. One night he woke up in the barn. He had no idea how he got there. He was lying in hay, wearing his boots, holding his flashlight. His hands were scratched up, and there were weird symbols drawn on the wooden walls around him. Not painted, carved. Like someone or something had been writing messages all night. But the creepiest thing was this. Above him, scratched deep into the beams, was one word. Stay. That was it. Just stay. Over and over again, like a chant. Luke ran. He didn't care about his stuff. He jumped in his truck and somehow it worked this time. He drove like hell to the sheriff's office. They sent a team to check the property. They found the barn exactly how he described it. Symbols, the word stay, and something else. Down in the cellar under the barn, they found bones. Not just animal bones. Human ones. Dozens of them. Old. Some newer. Skulls with strange carvings on them. All hidden in a dirt pit deep beneath the floor. The land was sealed off. Investigators came from out of state, but no one ever explained what really happened there. They said it might have been some kind of cult long ago. Others said the land itself was cursed, but none of that mattered to Luke. He never went back. He moved to a different state. Never bought land again. For years, he had nightmares. Sometimes he'd wake up and swear he saw the figure at the end of his hallway. Watching. I saw him a couple years ago, at a family gathering. He still looks over his shoulder a lot, keeps the lights on at night. And when someone jokes about farmland, he just goes quiet. And I get it. Because after hearing his story, I don't think it was a ghost. I don't think it was a cult. I think it was something much older. Something not meant for our world. And I think that farm was feeding it. So if you ever see a deal too good to be true on a piece of farmland, walk away. No matter how peaceful it looks, no matter how cheap the price. Some places are cheap because they want you to come, and some places don't want you to leave. This is the story of a disturbing true farm horror story I'm going to tell you. And trust me, by the end, you won't look at quiet country fields the same way again. This happened to my cousin Mark back in 2011, when he inherited a remote farmhouse from our great-uncle Elias. The place was old, built in the 1930s, and it had sat empty for over 2 decades. Everyone in the family knew Elias was strange, quiet, kept to himself. But no one expected what Mark would discover out there. The farm was way out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by miles of cornfields, no neighbors for at least 5 miles. The nearest town barely had a gas station and a diner. When Mark moved in, he planned to renovate the place, maybe even turn it into a bed and breakfast someday. He figured the peace and quiet would help him escape his messy city life. But that peace didn't last long. From the first night, things felt off. The air around the farmhouse had a heaviness to it. Mark said it was like the silence itself was watching him. The kind of silence that presses against your ears. At night, the wind made strange sounds through the cracks in the wood, like whispers. Not quite words, but too rhythmic to be random. The first real sign that something was wrong came about a week in. Mark was digging around in the barn, cleaning out old tools and broken equipment. Under a pile of rotted wood, he found a trapdoor in the floor. It was heavy, iron reinforced, and locked with a rusted chain. Curious, he broke it open and climbed down. What he found underneath wasn't a cellar. It was a room. A small, cold room with stone walls. There was a circle drawn in the middle of the floor, made from what looked like dried blood. Around the edges, symbols had been carved into the stone. Some were just shapes. Others looked like strange letters or runes. Mark backed out fast and sealed the door. He told himself it was some old farm superstition, maybe a storm shelter used by someone overly religious or eccentric. He tried to forget about it, but he couldn't, because that night the scratching started. It came from inside the walls. At first it was faint, like rats maybe, but over the next few nights it got louder, more urgent, like something wanted out. He'd lie in bed, paralyzed, hearing it move from one end of the room to the other, always scratching, tapping, like claws on old wood. One night, he snapped. He got up, turned on every light, and searched the entire house. Nothing. No holes. No animals. But the noise wouldn't stop. The next day, he found something even worse. Deep in the cornfield, far from the house, he stumbled across a scarecrow. But here's the thing. He never put one there. It was tall, 7 feet at least, made of old clothes stuffed with hay. But the head wasn't a sack. It was a deer skull, hollow-eyed and grinning, nailed to the shoulders with rusted spikes. There were bones at its feet, small ones, like chickens maybe, or something else. Mark knocked it down, burned it, and poured salt on the ashes, just like he'd seen in old movies. But that night the scratching turned into footsteps. Slow, heavy, moving across the attic. When he went up to check, there was nothing. But the floor was covered in muddy footprints. Bare footprints. Large, inhuman. He started sleeping with a shotgun next to his bed. Then came the dreams. Every night, he dreamt he was back in that underground room. The circle glowed. The symbols moved. And something in the dark whispered his name over and over again. He didn't tell anyone until he called me 2 weeks later. I could hear the panic in his voice. He begged me to come visit just for a few days, said he couldn't be alone anymore. So I went. The minute I stepped onto the farm, I felt it too, like the land didn't want us there. The grass was too still, the birds didn't sing. Everything just felt wrong. That first night we both heard it. Footsteps in the attic pacing above us. We went up together. Nothing. But as we turned to go back down, we heard something whisper behind us. Stay. It was so clear, so close. I could feel breath on my neck. We both ran. Neither of us slept. The next day we tried to leave, but the truck wouldn't start. Brand new battery, full tank, everything looked fine. Still dead. We tried calling for help. No signal. That night, Mark disappeared. I woke up to the front door wide open. His boots were gone. His shotgun was on the floor. I searched the house, the barn, the field. Nothing. It was like he vanished into the air. Hours later, I found him, standing in the middle of the cornfield, barefoot, eyes wide open, and whispering something over and over. I grabbed him, shook him, yelled. Finally he blinked and screamed. Said he had no idea how he got there. Said something was calling him. We left that night. Left the farm. Left everything. Just walked until we found the road. A passing truck picked us up and took us into town. Mark sold the farm 2 weeks later. Or tried to. But no one would buy it. Locals said they'd heard stories about that land for decades. Said Elias wasn't the first to go mad there. Said people used to practice old magic in those fields, things forgotten by time. The property still sits there, abandoned, overgrown. The barn collapsed last year during a storm, but the house still stands, and every now and then, someone driving past says they see a light in the attic, or a tall shape in the corn. We don't talk about it much anymore. Mark moved far away, got married, started over. But sometimes when it's real quiet, he still hears scratching behind the walls. He never sleeps without the lights on, and he never forgets what that voice said in the attic. Stay. So if you ever come across an old farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere, one with a strange feeling in the air where the birds don't sing and the silence feels heavy, don't go inside. Don't open the cellar. And whatever you do, don't stay the night. Some places remember and some places are still hungry.